This is the Lekker Rugby Pod, only on Megaphone Rugby.
How's it, everyone? Lekker Rugby Pod. Something very special today. We've had a run of incredible coaches and we're not stopping. There have been a lot of powerful pictures in the rugby season of 2025 so far, but for me, one of the most powerful because it was poignant. It was born of pain, it was born of patience, it was born of a long time waiting, was the scene of Johann van Graan on the turf, sitting, showing some remarkable flexibility, I will add, with cross-legged, arms akimbo behind him, his famous notebook nearby, in red, his team having just survived the Leicester Tigers, their old rival, 23-21, in a knockout game, which has a funny habit of tightening, after finishing 11 points clear in the log. Johann's team, Bath, that he took over, sort of in a broken state, having been in the doldrums, even since Bruce Craig took over in 2010. It was just sitting there waiting for something. And that moment where you finally get to see someone absorb what happened. Most of the time, it's champagne, it's goggles, it's jumping around, it's screaming. Johann was sitting and thinking about what it meant, the hunger, what it meant to say the best is yet to come. And in that moment, we all saw someone that we thought we knew. And then I think we all wondered, now, what is this guy thinking about now? What is next? So we're happy to have Johann on the Lekker Rugby Pod today to delve into how do you become a front runner? How do you stay a front runner? How do you handle the pressure? Welcome, Johann van Graan.
Hey, thank you very much. Great to be on your show and great to speak about rugby. There's few things in life I love as much as rugby. There's a lot of people close to my heart, but yeah, I absolutely love rugby and thank you.
Johann, Harry's and I's, our very first Lekker Rugby Pod ever had you on the cover. And we were talking about the South African, we call it diaspora, South African coaches, rugby players, businessmen, you name it, going overseas and being successful. And we had you as a sort of a poster child. And we'll continue to claim you as one of our own. And we'll continue to claim you as one of Pretoria's own, one of the Bulls one. Talk to me just briefly about the grounding that you had in rugby in Pretoria. Harry mentioned on our WhatsApp that I stay close to office, but I also said, listen, I also stay next door to Pretoria Boys High. Lots of different cultures, but united around the Bulls. Just briefly, your Bulls background, what it means to your DNA in that sense.
Yeah, so you won't be able to see it now, but over my right shoulder there's a picture from a drone when I was the coach of Munster, and the drone is on top of Affy's, where I went to school, but it's a very significant picture, and the fact that Loftus is in the background, and I literally grew up at Loftus since 1983 when I was 3 years old. Was the first time that I was there. Now, obviously, I can't remember when I was 3 years old. And then to the left of Loftus is the Ooskerk, the church that I've been going to since I was 10 years old. Some amazing memories, some very sad times in that church. The home that I grew up is up the hill in Eastwood Street, close to the Union buildings. And then to the right is the University of Pretoria, where I studied and got my degree. So that's, I don't know how big it is, but kilometer by kilometer, it's got a very special place in my heart. And yeah, look, I've got some incredible stories to tell and things that have happened to me and that I was privileged to be part of. From the early days, being a ball boy at Loftus, Currie Cup finals, kicking balls back to Naas Botha, being taught how to torpedo kick by Pieter Nel, who got injured in the tunnel in the 1990 final when he ran onto the pitch. That same day, I was a ball boy when Tony Watson handed off Theo van Rensburg to score in the far left corner. The 91 final, when Dion Oosthuizen scored that fabulous try. Sad day for my dad, Jan Locke, the tight head great, unfortunately passed away. 94, my first test match as a ball boy. The the 95 World Cup, which was an incredible experience. 1998, the Currie Cup final, which was an amazing game between the Blue Bulls and Western Province. And then I trained there and for quite a bit as a junior. Took my first steps in analysis coaching there, and then being part of an incredible team of people from the start of the end of 2003 till 2012. So I'm Pretoria born and bred. Very proud to be from Pretoria, from Affies. Affies is very, very close to my heart. I actually watched the game there last weekend between Affies and Maritzburg College. Fantastic South African schoolboy derby. And I took my two boys to watch, and the Witbull, the original Witbull next to the field, I was part of getting that Witbull to Affies, and very proud to tell my boys that it's still there and it still goes to every first team game. And so look, I'm proudly South African, proud to be from the Bulls and from Affies and from Pretoria.
Yeah, Johan, it's funny because you're obviously steeped in history, you're rooted, you're grounded. You're a young coach still, actually, 45 or so. But your choices, not just where you were from, which is not your choice, but where you've gone. Munster, it celebrates a treaty signed, I don't know, 500 years ago. When you walk around, the castle's crumbling here and there. The fandom there is incredibly loyal, allegiant. A guy like, Brendan Foley, who's a friend of mine, and his daughter Orla, that they celebrate what went before, and you're part of that. Then you go even older. I mean, I don't know how old the city of Bath is, but it's going to be, we're talking thousands of years old. Club formed in 1860. I mean, that's old, guys. I don't know if you can get much older. What is it? You seem to be someone who's very modern, analytical, and progressive about how you approach rugby. Yet you really must certainly like tradition, right? You like these traditional clubs.
Yeah. So history was one of my subjects at school. I specifically chose history because I'm very interested in what has gone before, to understand why things have happened. I'm somebody that loves to dream about the future because that's still to come, and I try and live my life in the now because that's all we have. From a history point of view, the 5 years in Munster was an incredible journey for us as a family, and I remember the first time that I flew over to Munster. I met the NCO, Gareth Fitzgerald, and unfortunately passed away a number of years ago. But it struck me the love for Munster that he had, and he spoke about what the club's about. And we drove from Dublin to Limerick, and I remember one of the first things driving to Limerick is flags outside the homes, in the streets, people proudly wearing their Munster jerseys and Munster kit. And there was this instant sense of community. And I experienced that for the 5 years. And it's an incredible place of rugby. And whether you're in Limerick or in Cork, in Waterford or in County Clare, people love their rugby, and it's a real rugby province, and the utmost respect for Munster. And I was fortunate to meet some incredible people, coach some of the best players that have played the game. And our little girl was born right in the middle of COVID in Limerick, and she's got amazing red hair, and she will always be our Munster and our Irish connection. And then Bath, 1865, the club was found, and it's amazing if I put it into a South African perspective. If you think when the Anglo-Boer Wars were and the history of South Africa, and you think when rugby started, Bath is one of the first. And if you think of how rugby went across the world, Australia, New Zealand, Argentina. So look, incredibly privileged to be part of an amazing club currently, and loving our time here in Bath. The people have been amazing to us. And I think two things spring to mind about Munster and Bath: the Bulls, respect for the game, the values of the game, what the game is actually about, and then community. Why do you play this game? This is the ultimate team game. Whether you're thin or fat, tall or short, fast or slow, it's about this amazing gladiatorial game, which we all then, at the final whistle, shake hands and have a beer together, and then we go again. There's not a lot of team sports left in the world that's like that. And yeah, what an amazing privilege.
Yeah, I've been privileged to be at those three grounds. Loftus, which I've called the world's largest abattoir. It's a place that smells and feels and looks like rugby in its essence. Thomond Park, as they would call it, Thomond Park, we would say. There's actually a guy leading a horse to pasture before the game right outside the stadium. I mean, it's very pastoral. I've never been in a ground that's more quiet for opponents' kicks. I mean, they really believe in these values. And then, the rec, that's a vibe. There's people who can stay in their house, in their apartment, and look into the game from their flat. So these are all very quirky places. But jumping to that, because we want to get into the how of it. I mean, when you arrived, Bath was sort of rock bottom. It was going nowhere. How did you seek to instill something different, some culture of belief in a team that was languishing at the bottom of the Prem?
I think the first bit is 2 ears and one mouth. I believe in life we should all listen 2 times as much as we speak. So I try to understand first. A coach that I respect a lot taught me that you must always trust your eyes. So I trusted my eyes. I think the number one thing you need in life is good people. I found some incredible people here at Bath. When I came in, there was some perception on my side, but there were some fantastic players here. We appointed new heads of departments for operations, medical, physical performance, nutrition, recruitment in advance, and we started to work in advance. And there's so many people that were part of it, and I can't reiterate enough. It's not I. It's the ultimate team game. You can't do it alone. Somebody's got to take the responsibility, which am I, but you can't do it without good people. And we have all created a unique culture with purpose. And then after a few months, I went to the board, and obviously the season started, the first season. And there was like, okay, there's some things that we definitely need to change. And there was already so much change before I came, and in the first 6 months. But I'd say we saw a lot of change, but you didn't necessarily see it on the scoreboard in the first few months. And there was a little purple patch when we won 4 games and then lost a few more. And it was only the following March that things started to roll on. And then I think the thing that people miss with change, you've got to do it with care, because a lot of players left after the first season, and all of them that have left are part of the success that we've had at the back end of last season. That's why I speak about this journey. Everybody that's been on this journey has played their part. So I say that the number one thing for me was 2 ears and one mouth, and then trusting my eyes about good people.
Part of it is hard is when you're doing change, is you institute change, but then the immediate results may look like it's not working. So you still have to somehow get your guys to buy in and say, but it's going to work on the scoreboard. I was interested about squad rotation. Some people have sold Bath as this, well, they're Galacticos. You just, gathered all these best players. In fact, when I looked at it, there were nobody started in all 18 Prems. Only 15 started 9 games. And it was guys like Tom Dunn, who looks like me, by the way, Charlie Ewells, Quinn Rue. These were not, mega signings with, massive contracts who were building your depth. And you had a hard to predict lineup. So talk to us a little bit about how you rotated and how you got through that log, 11 points clear, not by overplaying your top players, but by having enough depth.
Yes, I think the first thing that you touched on was the how is there is a clear vision, there's a clear plan, and I haven't deviated from what I showed the players, the staff, the board, the club on day one, and day one is the 11th of July 2022. So alignment was key, and there's no mixed messages. There's no, well, this week we're going this way, and the following week we're going that way. There was only one way from the start, and that was our way, what we created together. I learned a lot in the Irish system, and David Nusifora was the performance director at the time, and I learned so much from him and the Irish system. And every country's got their own system, and that's got to work for that country. I think the South African system currently is amazing for South Africa. The New Zealanders have their system, the English have their system, so the French have got their own system. So that's the second bit, is you've got to be able to adapt to which country you're in. And then from a squad rotation point of view, is the game have moved on so quickly. It's not about who's starting, it's not about who's on the bench, it's about a squad, and we've built a squad. And I'll give you one example because it's such a good question, Harry. When we played in the Prem Cup final, so the Prem Cup, you get the Premiership, then you get the Champions and the Challenge Cup, and then you get the Prem Cup, which for us is a development competition. So in the final, there was some of our, let's call it our Premiership starters available. And I was left with a decision from a selection point of view. Do I go with the guys that have gotten us into this position, or do I go with some of the guys that started in the Premiership final? And we backed our squad. We started with Arthur Cordwell, Jasper Spanner, and Kieran Verdon. We stuck with Ewan Riches as the captain. And yes, we had a mixed squad, but we used 49 players in the Prem Cup. And it's all about the squad. It's all about the we and how we do things together. And at the end of the day, you don't become a champion when you win a trophy, or a champion every day of your life. And we needed to make sure that collectively we build a champion squad. And yeah, I'm very proud of this group of players and staff that have all created an incredible environment that people want to be part of. And ultimately, you want to give people good experiences. And yeah, we're all loving our time at Bath.
Johann, again, I mentioned at the beginning, you and I share, a love of Pretoria and the likes. I'm interested to know how you adjusted to the different cultures in either Munster or Bath. Being an Afrikaans-speaking person, and you talked about talking to the board and talking to the players, all these people, that role players that you have to deal with being an Afrikaans or Afrikaans-speaking South African in a completely almost alien environment. I mean, rugby is the common theme there, but it's different. How difficult was it to adjust to that side of the equation?
Yeah, and again, a fantastic question. In 2003, when Heineke appointed me for the first time, I wrote quite a few things down in terms of what do I promise myself. And one of the things I promised myself is that I've got to make sure I get into different environments each year to make sure that personally I develop. So from a young age, I've put myself in a lot of different environments. And sometimes the thing that you learn is how not to do things. But I think it's important to see other environments that it's, we can get as human beings so caught up in our rhythm and the way that we do things is the right way, but there's always a better way to do something. So I think that's the first thing I'll say. The second bit is I was very conscious when I started with the Springboks in 2012 that I needed to speak more English, which sounds so obvious, but at the Bulls we spoke Afrikaans for 99% of the time, and I think the only English word is scrum and rack that I knew. So, I was very conscious at the start, but I stuck with it. I remember Beastie and Pat Lambie and Keegan Daniel and Ryan Konkowski all being English guys for the Springboks in 2012. But so I forced myself to speak a lot more English. When I went to Ireland, I was very aware that It's an Irish club. It's European. And there's certain adjustment I needed to make individually from a coaching perspective. And I think that's self-awareness. You need to work on your self-awareness. What's your surroundings and how do you adapt around it? But then I think the most important bit is a quote that I've learned from Pep Guardiola. The quote says, "This beast called football will eat you alive if you're not always, 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 always yourself." So one of the things I've learned that understand who you are, and that's me. And obviously, I need to understand who I am. And when you're in the position that I am, you've got to make sure that you lead, but you've also got to figure out what type of leader are you. And then ultimately, when you work with people, you've got to make sure as their leader, you've got to take care of themselves. And a very valuable lesson I've learned, and I only understood that I only really understood this once I had children, is I try and coach players the way that I hope coaches one day coach my two boys and my little girl. And it's a pretty simple formula as a coach, and you can every individual will see that a bit differently. But for me, it's honesty, treat them with respect, do what's the best for them, make them part of the team, as a few examples. So yeah, culturally I needed to adapt. Massive difference again from Ireland to England. If you look at both countries' history, even though they're pretty close by, it's so different. So yeah, it's been a massive learning curve. I'm still learning every single day, and I think that's the mindset that I'm keep having, is you've got to keep learning and you've got to keep dreaming, because we've got one life, and enjoy the time that we have now.
I've always found that adaptation as a skill, just like foreign language learning, it's its own thing. It's not about adapting to skill X and then, once you adapt to anything that you've not been accustomed to, you can do the next one easier and the next one and the next one, just like learning languages. I'm interested in, most coaches fight over the underdog title. Everyone going into a big match goes, "No, we're the underdogs. No, we're the underdogs. You should win. You should win." And you don't want that tag, which was fine for you in 2022, but it wasn't fine in 2025. You had to teach yourself, your staff, everyone around you, and your players to wear the favorite tag, comfortable, to be comfortable, not vinchat, but go in and thinking, if we do our job, we should win. Talk to me about how that transformation happened, because that's very difficult.
So I think anything worthwhile takes time. And when I started at Bath, I said to the owner and the board, if you want instant success, short-term success, I'm not your man. I'd like to think that I can make a difference and that I can help. And why I say that is, in any journey you go through experiences. So a lot of the experiences that we went through helped us to where we are right now. And I specifically said right now because there's no end point. I think that's the first thing I'd say is you're part of a journey. It's not when you do something, you stop, and because otherwise then you've got to leave. So that's the first bit. The second bit is a phrase that became part of us: never too high, never too low. Because rugby is so unpredictable. When you win by a point, sometimes the world can tell you everything is right. And then when you lose by an intercept try, a drop goal in the last minute, it doesn't mean that everything is wrong. So never too high, never too low. And I think, again, from a coaching point of view, and we've got some fantastic coaches. Lee Blackett is one of the very best attack coaches in world rugby, in my view. JP Ferreira has been with me at Munster and at Bath now, is one of the very best. Richard Blaze, the former Leicester player and coach, met him many years ago at a personal development bit at the Bulls, and he's been absolutely fantastic. So Stevie Scott and Andy Robinson has been incredible, the legendary Bath coach. So never too high, never too low, consistent coaching. Make sure that your training stays the same. Yes, you need to be emotional at times, but emotion only lasts so long. And specifically because we're playing a collision sport, after 5 minutes, after the first tackle, the first hit, it's not so much about the emotion. You've got to make sure that you play the game for 80 minutes. So I'd say the biggest thing for us is never too high, never too low, and then you just get onto the next one. Harry, I've seen in the Northern Hemisphere specifically, we started last season on the 15th of July, and the final was on the 14th of June. We started this season on the 21st of July, and should we be good enough to get to a Premiership final again, that is only on the 21st of June next year. So if you think we are in August now, and any type of playoff should be good enough to get there is in June, that's a very long time. So you've got to make sure that you remain consistent throughout and pick your battles and pick your times. And Vince Lombardi, the legendary NFL coach, he some of these readings said you must win the right games. So I'll give you an example. The only team to beat us at home last season in the Premiership were Bristol, and we lost home and away to Bristol. But when it mattered in the semi-final, we beat them. And that's just an example of remaining never too high, never too low. You've got to make sure you win the right games. And look, we were fortunate enough to play in 2 home semi-finals in the Premiership in the last 2 years, and we won both. I lost the final against Northampton a year ago, and we're good enough to win a final this year against Leicester. And in both finals, we played really well. The one we won and the one we didn't. So yeah, consistency and never too high, never too low.
For our South African audience, I should point out that the rivalry between Leicester Tigers and Bath is unbelievably deep. To put this in context, I think when the Premiership changed its formulation constitution, 12 of the first 15 premierships were won by either Tigers or Bath, and in so many times they were playing each other. So it was especially sweet. One thing I will point out, you probably know this, but maybe you don't. Your consistency in the final 20 minutes was unbelievable. And that makes me think about another NFL coach, I forgot who it was, who said, fatigue makes cowards of us all. Like a controllables to be the fittest team is a controllable in some ways because you put the work in. But final 20 minutes on points for and points against, you scored 32% of your points in the final 25%. That's a massive delta. Even bigger, you conceded only 18% of your points in that final 25%. So if you got to 60 minutes, it was church. I mean, you knew the final 20 minutes. Was that a focus for you by design, or was it just a matter of how it happened?
When we started 3 years ago, what factually happened was Bath conceded 40 points or more on 13 occasions in that season, the season before I started. Bath had an incredible high injury rate and started games really well and fell away quite considerably. So that's not a criticism of anybody else. I'm just speaking about the fact. So 11 July 2022, we said we're going to start with the simple things. We're going to start with our habits, the way we eat, the way we sleep, what's our body composition, and that's different for each player. We are going to become fit in how we want to play the game, because there's many different ways to play the game. We decided this is the way that we're going to do it, and we said that rugby is an 80-minute game. Rugby is not a 60-minute or a 70-minute or a 78-minute game. Rugby is an 80-minute game. So yes, by design, it's something we worked on very hard. I wouldn't say that we've got a secret formula. What we have is incredible support staff, Sarah Jenner, Alex Martin, Rory Murray, in terms of nutrition, medical and physical performance and their teams. We've got a coaching staff that are all aligned into how we want to play the game and how we believe we can win games. And the most important, Harry, we've got hungry players. We've got a playing group that drive themselves, that want to get better every single week. And if you put all of those things together and then you add the rec and you add the city and you add the supporters, you get a pretty good formula. And that formula is like a train. It started to go quicker and quicker. And yeah, what an amazing into the season we had.
Did you have fun watching your guys play in the Lions recently? Will Stewart, Finn Russell. I was joking with you offline about you need to get Will Stewart that special magic boot that he put on and created a line break to win Test 2.
Yes, look, it's so proud of the two of them. I'm so proud when two players from our club played for the Lions, and yeah, both have had fantastic seasons, and both are now on a very well deserved rest. And I think what's amazing to see is how both players have progressed and developed, and both are close to the best in their position in world rugby. And most importantly, they're incredible team men. Both Stewie and Finn are incredible team men, and it's all about the team. And yeah, we at the club are incredibly proud of them.
Johan, I like to bring Formula One into rugby discussions to Harry's eternal chagrin. He doesn't like that because he doesn't understand it. But the most famous designer in Formula One history is Adrian Newey. And the one thing you always see with him, he walks with his red notebook under his arm, making notes. And we saw you with your notebook, and we were quite curious. You seem to be a very considered type of person. You think about things, you plan things, you have a very clear strategy and everything in mind. What's in that notebook of yours?
It's actually in front of me, so it's right here with me. Look, my first learning from notebooks is my dad, and he, again, I don't know what you call them in South Africa, but he has those black A4 lanky notebook
with the red thing on the side. Yeah. Folio. It's called a folio. Yeah.
So I always saw him writing stuff down, and it was during my school days that I started doing the same. And what I found for me is talk is cheap, but once you put something in your own handwriting, it's kind of you've written it down, you've signed by it, and I've decided in my life that I'm going to have a few mentors, and I've learned so much from them, and I review and preview every single day of my life. And because there's so many learnings, I make a lot of mistakes. Some things I do well, some things I don't. Some situations I could handle better. There's a first every single day, something that you haven't seen before. So I try and keep learning from it. From a rugby point of view, I like to write stuff down. When I've met with people, one-on-ones, meetings, I write during and after meetings, and that's a good guide for me to refer back to. And I've got multiple ones also for different situations. But the last few years, my wife found this company, and we've kind of branded each one for the certain place where we're at in the season. And yeah, look, it's obviously all my personal writing. And one of the nicest memories I have is Johann van Graan, a player I coached at Bath, and who was an Affies and at the Bulls, and went to Northampton and to Worcester. Before the 2015 World Cup, he said, "Why don't you write a book?" And I said, "No, I won't write a book." And he said, "Just write the whole World Cup journey." And what I did was 100 days before the 2015 World Cup, I started kind of journaling the whole World Cup. And I remember we landed back in South Africa after that third and fourth playoff against the Argentinians on the 3rd of November. And I don't know exactly how long ago, a year or 18 months ago, I actually read through that. And it's incredible what you forget. Our brains are so powerful, and everything is in the brain. But sometimes when you read something, it's like, oh yeah, that was an amazing learning, or I remember that moment, or yeah, that was something great that we did. So yeah, look, I guess it's part of who I am and what I do. But yeah, it's a good guide for me.
There's a lot of science behind how much you learn if whilst you're learning, you also commit it to writing, cursive writing, your own writing, even doodling, and it maximizes it, adds by 80% or something. This is why school was taught the way it was. I'm fascinated by the old explorers, polar explorers, guys like Lewis and Clark, who went across the continent of North America before anyone had seen anything. Are you sort of taking notes of what you've seen? You watch another game, another coach has some interesting variation, proverbs for life. What all is going into that type of notebook?
Yeah, so firstly, the stuff that's important to me, the why. And then I wouldn't share that yeah, but why do I do what I do? And what do I believe in life? What's the most important things in my life? And that's my faith in my family. And then every single book that you're in, it's kind of like a time in the year. So what's your goals, and well, what's the things coming up, and what's the learnings you've just had. And then yeah, look, I had a fascinating afternoon a week ago with a very good friend of mine, Ferreira, who's one of the best players that I've ever coached. And again, just the learnings from that conversation, and speaking about the game and about where rugby is and about the individuals. So again, I took so many learnings from that. And then things as simple as I like to run in the morning, and I like to think. And a lot of times when I come back, it's just literally writing that down. And obviously, I can't always take my book, but I'd make some notes on my phone. But what I found with the phone is it's too easy to write stuff because you forget and delete stuff. Whereas I feel when something's in your own handwriting, you've kind of confirmed it, because there's no Tipex, there's no, what do you call it, a ruler to take it out. It's once it's in ink, it's in ink. So yeah, look, it works for me. I didn't know that it's a thing that people see it. For me, it's just something that I do. And yeah, well, hopefully somebody else has got one book somewhere.
No, for sure. There's coaches that are known as the pipe smoking coach, or the tracksuit coach. You're the notebook coach, and I kind of get it now. It's if it makes it into the notebook, then you've already vetted it. It's higher. It's a bit sacred, if you will. In that moment when you're sitting down, I mean, obviously you were happy. There's no doubt. Were you trying to sort of never too high, never too low yourself in that moment? Was it almost too much in the 23-21 win over your, old rivals, Leicester Tigers? Were you sort of trying to moderate yourself?
Firstly, there's a few moments. The first one just after the final whistle was just being thankful, grateful for the journey, and the fact that so many other people are happy, because that moment when the final whistle blew at Twickenham, yeah, that was incredible. The bit around sitting on the field, I remember sitting on the field in the Cardiff final when we won the Challenge Cup and the Prem Cup final at Sandy Park. It's more just trying to take things in, enjoying the moment. And again, I like to look at people. I find a lot of my joy in other people's happiness, seeing some of the players that I've coached, the amazing emotions that they go through. Certain players giving a hug to their dad or their partner or their kids, or interacting with each other. Amazing to see supporters happy on the side. Can't wait for players to come around. So yeah, for me, it's savoring the moment, enjoying the moment. It's kind of like your wedding day. I think, hopefully you do your wedding day only once. And Pierre Spies, a player that I've coached before and someone that I've got so much respect for, before my wedding day, he said, Johann, remember to just stand still and watch. And I remember the night Melissa, my wife, and I just a few moments just took it in, just watched. So yeah, specifically back to Twickenham, I just enjoyed the moment. In life for me, whatever you achieve is between three things mainly: grace, hard work, and luck. So somewhere between those three things, I'd say that's where my strength comes from. Sport's not perfect. Sometimes you get the right result and sometimes you don't. Hard work. I've not achieved anything without hard work. There's certainly no easy way. And then grace. Yeah, it's not because of our own strength. There's a lot of other things that matter more than rugby. So yeah, I love that moment.
I've showed that moment to a lot of people in different disciplines of my life, even that I lead, to show the principle of observing and being in the moment. And I think it's so difficult when you have that much emotion, that much hard work, and then it comes to fruition. You are tempted to run around with your hair on fire and not know anything and almost have to look back on the TV. I found it quite interesting that you were able to sit there and actually enjoy, like you say, how the other people were enjoying it. Um, how much of that have you journaled? Have you been able to sit down and write through?
Um, I think we're all different. Um, we all express our emotion in different ways. I think that's the amazing thing about team sports is, you get props, you get hookers, you get locks, you get loose forwards. They're all so different. For me, a big word in my life is composure, and I take this back to never too high, never too low. Um, Consistent in the moment, and look, I'm the last guy to say that I'm perfect. It's just the way that I try and do things. So for me, I make good decisions when I'm calm, when I'm composed. And for me, life is about the now. It's about the moment that we are in. So that's why I try and savor it. Yes, I've written quite a bit of it. And look, I've been fortunate enough to be involved in close to 500 first class games now across 23 years now. So I've been through a lot of experiences, some amazing wins, some very disappointing losses. Been privileged to win 4 Currie Cups, 3 Super Rugbies, also lose a World Cup semi-final, lose a Pro 14 final and a Premiership final, and then again you get 3 trophies in 9 weeks with some amazing moments and people. So that's sport for you. So yeah, one of the things that is important to me is composure and stay in the now.
Johan, we have to cut this short, unfortunately. Time's got up to us. If you don't mind, I'd love to continue this conversation another day. There's so many questions we still want to ask you. And the one thing I wasn't just say to you, when I was listening to you, I resonated with everything that you said. We cut from the same cloth. And people in Pretoria and South Africa will know exactly what I'm talking about. It was a pleasure talking to you. So thank you so much.
MV, thank you very much.
This is the Lekker Rugby Pod, only on Megaphone Rugby.